We are live on Thursday, March the 31st. I am John Pollock alongside Wai Ting as WrestleMania week truly kicks off today with the first of many shows taking place in and around Dallas, Texas. How are you doing today, Wai?
Doing okay, John. Yeah, not bad. Thursday already, and it's gonna feel like Monday before we even know it.
Yes, hundreds of hours of wrestling to come in the next several days, and we will see how much we all keep up with. But as we speak, Glory Pro kicking things off on Fight TV. We are going against them, but nonetheless, we will go over some of the cards coming up tonight, and I'm going to put Wai on the spot to predict what is going to be the match of the day on Thursday. I'm going to ask
Okay,
for
well, I'll let you know.
prediction. All
Sure.
right. We have a number of topics to get to today as well. We don't have a guest today, so if you want to throw in your super chats, we can make some time at the end of the show to take any and all of your questions. On Friday's show, we'll do a big preview of both nights of WrestleMania and a programming note for those that are members of the Post Wrestling Cafe. We will have a show up late tonight going through Bloodsport and part one of Spring Break. So Wai and I will have that show up probably late Thursday / early Friday, depending how late spring break goes. We may be zombies by tomorrow, and it's
Friday
only
morning, I would say.
Friday morning is very safe. It's also the first of the month, so you are going to get more than enough of your value this weekend. We will have a bonus show on Friday night after SmackDown and the Hall of Fame, and then we have live shows after each night of WrestleMania with several other Patreon shows coming out Saturday, covering ROH, Spring Break, a lot of coverage.
And also MCU later. Also, Rewind to SmackDown every single week. Rewind Away, of course. You get these post-daily news updates directly in your RSS feeds that are custom for every single person who signs up. All of this for just $6. PostWrestlingCafe.com.
Yes, and you can go back and check out some of our interviews from this week. A great chat with Ian Riccaboni on Wednesday. We also had Dave Meltzer on this week, Brian Mann. So some great chats to go seek out. But we're going to start off with Nick Khan, who is beginning to do the media rounds, Wai, here in the WrestleMania lead-up. And he was on The Town with Matthew Belloni and talked about going over some things that are common knowledge about coming into WWE, leaving CAA. He explained that, him and his family early on in the pandemic had left LA and they had gone to Hawaii, and gets a call from Vince McMahon and he flies to meet with Vince. That would be a hard sell for me. You know what I mean? If I had the means, just go off to Hawaii while the pandemic is roaring and the option is go work for Vince McMahon. I mean, must have been a very enticing offer, which I believe it was for one Nick Khan.
I would assume so as well. Yeah, Hawaii's a pretty nice place, and I'm sure he'll have plenty of time to be in Hawaii for the rest of his life.
So, I mean, they talked about the move from the WWE network over to Peacock, and one of the interesting aspects was, it was brought up the fact Peacock is not considered one of the majors yet. This is still an emergent, a huge machine behind it in Comcast, NBC, Universal, but this is not Netflix. This is not a Disney or ESPN Plus. And, he did note the fact that when, it seems like it is his philosophy when an incumbent that you have worked with and have a very lengthy relationship, as WWE has had with NBC / USA Network, you give that incumbent a hometown, home team discount. And essentially stating the fact, that Peacock and NBCU, they had that loyalty to their partner of so many years. And when others were interested, that was a leg up that Peacock had. And Peacock has been public about the fact of WWE Network and what it has brought in terms of the growth of the network. So when that transitioned into the discussion of a potential sale, it was the usual line from Nick Khan that we are open for business. And then added the fact that one thing that Comcast and NBC Universal lack is a lot of intellectual property that they own when you're competing with the Disneys of the world. And, he kind of painted this picture that WWE is a very attractive buy because we own all of our IP and we have these vast characters and specifically designated theme parks that when you go to Universal Studios and it's a lot of outside intellectual property that they have to license as opposed to owning it outright. And that, in a nutshell, I think is a large philosophy of the company now, is viewing this as this is our IP and how can we make the most money possible, whether it be theme parks, whether it can be scripted dramas, it's like NFTs, like all of this stuff, it is rooted in our characters and our development of IP and monetizing this across the board. And I believe that's certainly a mandate of Nick Khan's, that whether he is initiating it or has been tasked with that, that certainly seems to be like a major leap for the company, is finding the true value of all of these different characters to be even something in remotely comparable to like a Marvel universe.
Sure, yeah. I think maybe part of the reason why we have people like Braun Breaker being called Braun Breaker, and maybe why the reluctance of so many, I don't know, characters instead of like real people that are continuing to be there. I mean, of course, the big difference is these are people that are these are characters that are tied to actual people, and when they leave your companies, yeah, you keep the name, but I mean, I can't see, you know, a ride based off of Otis, you know, sticking around after the man has moved on to you know, another company. So I mean, listen, like this is the game, is to try to, you know, get your company in the same conversations as, you know, the Super Bowl or as, you know, Disney and Marvel. And doing this, I think, certainly makes WWE feel more attractive. But in execution, outside of maybe The Undertaker, or, you know, like having a number of series based off of Vince McMahon, and of course, like they're still, you know, doing stuff with The Rock and Steve Austin and whatnot. It's not exactly the same, is all I'm trying to say.
No, it becomes a different component when you're talking about humans that are these characters in and of themselves, and you're very much selling the person, and you are going to add to them, you are going to create characters around them, but there's also a positive to that. Like you cannot do an autograph signing with Iron Man, you know what I mean, but with Roman Reigns, like this is a human that you can interact with. So I mean, there's that aspect to things as well. When
you could do it with Robert Downey Jr., but they wouldn't really control that.
You can, but it's to me, it's an actor playing a role, whereas this, it's a much more blurred vision. And in terms of just the positioning of this, I think this is overall just largely presenting yourself that, hey, you look at Marvel, we're no different, and that's what you're trying to sell to, like in interviews like this. Like that is how WWE wants to present itself. There was a comparison of Vince McMahon to Shonda Rhimes as the showrunner of WWE. He also made comparisons to Lorne Michaels, and they got into a discussion about The Rock and when he was struggling in Hollywood, that it was getting back in with WWE and seeking advice from Vince McMahon when things were not working. And it seemed like they really positioned the Tooth Fairy as like rock bottom for, pardon the pun, for Dwayne Johnson. So as you can tell, when Nick Khan, the most you'll get out of him saying something was god awful is that was tough. That was tough. That was tough. He also just spoke a bit about, this part was interesting. So, and I don't necessarily disagree at the first part, where he stated that a lot of former fans or childhood fans of the product are now in various positions of power in the media. He specifically noted Bill Simmons, and now it's a lot easier of a sell for WWE. It's not scoffed at to the same degree. And by and large, I would agree. I think there's much more of an acceptance of WWE. I think they can get on a lot more platforms now. But when he compared to, like, we had to beg to get onto shows back when there were not podcasts, and then brought up the interviews Vince did with Bob Costas and Armin Katayan on HBO Sports in 2003 as examples of people that had no respect for our product. Like, I would love to see anyone sit down and watch that interview, and your takeaway at the end of it was, man, those hosts are really disrespectful. Not the guy who was literally having a meltdown against Bob Costas and smashing the notes out of Armin Katayan's hands because he had the gall to ask about real subjects to a contentious personality in Vince McMahon. But that is one interpretation I've never heard of those interviews was people not having respect for wrestling.
It is the home team's interpretation, of course.
Yes. I missed those emails when Vince was begging to come on the Law. I didn't get those emails.
He's
welcome to join us. He's welcome to join us.
Yeah.
Anytime. And then they closed off discussing WrestleMania. They noted the Vince McMahon documentary series on Netflix will be out next year that Bill Simmons is the executive producer of. And worth noting that this podcast was a part of the Ringer Network, so which they have a deal with. And Nick Khan, I tried to parse the words here, but the way he delivered this was the idea that they are on track to sell 100,000 tickets for each night at WrestleMania, which is ludicrous. There is. If that is what he meant, there is no way they are selling 100,000 tickets.
What's
each
capacity?
night. The legitimate number that Brandon Thurston got for the last one, it was just over 80,000 was the turnstile count. That is max. And if we go by WrestleTix, I mean the latest figures of tickets out, significantly below that. Night 1, just over 58,000. Night 2, just over 57,000.
So I'm guessing he's saying combined. Maybe
I would think so. Yes. I had heard from one source in WWE earlier this week that as of several days ago, they had passed 100,000 tickets sold. So, I mean, that's an amazing number. Yes, total.
Incredible.
For both nights. I think that's where a lot of people just get baffled at. The real numbers are impressive. It's a huge accomplishment to sell that amount. But if what he meant was if they announced 200, then I'm sorry. If you're a reporter out there, I don't care what you think about pro wrestling, you have to do some level of research.
How would they possibly announce 200? How would you even make that up? Because like you said, John, capacity
because every
is 80.
every year it's ridiculous, and the ones that know don't report it, and they wait for the KPI to come out, and you report the real range, the real figures, and you've had Vince McMahon go on record after the last AT&T Stadium to say, "Oh yeah, that number of 100,000, it wasn't paid. It was ticket takers and vendors and
Maybe we get a full number just of the entire weekend, between SmackDown and Raw, NXT.
Well, do you think that's what they do this year? Last year they announced an attendance night 1, night 2. Do you think they just do one big combined number?
I think you'll get your WrestleMania number just because I suppose that's the typical stat. What they could do whatever they want, dude. The game is about promoting. The game is about making your company seem bigger and larger than life than it probably is, so that your stockholders are happy, so that you have potentially more people, more powerful people that you can work with in the future. So there are no formal rules that they stick to other than what's required of them in their with their shareholders.
Anyway, so it's always an interesting interview. Nick Khan, he was also on CNBC this morning, so it seems like he is going around and doing several media appearances in the lead up to WrestleMania. And talent's all over the place. Like we talked about, how much media, like we saw Ronda Rousey on Ellen the other day. Roman Reigns was on Jimmy Fallon, obviously with the NBC connection. Randy Orton, as we speak, I think is on with Pat McAfee. Had just a disgusting story about having to go to the bathroom right before the interview, and I turned it off.
Okay, we await the highlights.
I'm just keeping you updated on everything that's going on media-wise.
I appreciate it.
The latest, NBC Universal and WWE, they're developing a scripted drama called Pinned. This does not have a home yet within NBC, but Variety report gives this a following description: an adrenalized upstairs-downstairs soap that gives a behind-the-scenes look at a fictional wrestling promotion and the unforgettable characters that populate it. This sounds remarkably close to Heels and maybe WWE's own interpretation of a fictional wrestling promotion. The executive producers of the series will be Craig O'Neill and Tom Rinaldi, with Vince McMahon and Kevin Dunn among those that will also hold executive producer titles. But no other word on actual shooting of this series or it landing anywhere.
I'm not familiar with the term upstairs, downstairs. I'm guessing behind the scenes and in front of the scenes. Is that the idea?
I imagine that's an industry jargon term that we're not up to speed on about its 360-degree view of an industry.
Okay, what about the basement?
I would love to know about the basement of WWE. I think they don't want. Maybe those are the questions that Vince McMahon might get mad at when you bring up the basement.
Yeah, I'm excited for these. I mean, to see a scripted version of pro wrestling. In WWE's take of it, I'm definitely at least curious. I don't know if I'll be a weekly viewer, but I'll have to determine the quality. I mean, they're partnering with some heavy hitters, so I'm assuming this will be of a certain standard, and we'll see how much interesting information is written here. I mean, this is all said to be fictitious, but what is going to be reflected of our reality?
Yeah, it's more so interesting to see with WWE attached to this the appetite for pro wrestling related content at this level, and putting it, like, whether this becomes a Peacock series or even is on traditional television, is interesting to note. And WWE, it appears like they are just flooding the market with these scripted and unscripted series. I think Nick Khan said on CNBC they have something like 12 in development. So they are throwing a lot of announcements out this week, and they should be. This is a very smart week to be putting out a lot of your initiatives post WrestleMania and throughout the year that are going to be a lot centered around Vince McMahon, who I think they view as their most valuable asset when it comes to the scripted series that they are developing, the United States of America versus Vince McMahon, and then your documentary series next year on Netflix, which will probably have a ton of attention attached to it.
Well, when we talk about IP, like I think, yeah, you probably have the most value of many people in a Vince McMahon, and he's probably not somebody that you're going to lose rights to anytime soon. So it makes a lot of sense.
Have you been following Seth Rollins' Twitter account? He's having a ton of fun this week about his potential WrestleMania opponents.
I have not. Please tell me what.
He's just posting GIFs of various people of just with the hashtag WrestleMania. He has posted. Let's go through the list here as I pull it up. Veer, Shane McMahon, Mustafa Ali, John Cena, Rob Van Dam, Scott Steiner, Elias, Bailey, and the latest, Marco Stunt.
Oh, wow. Okay. That's very funny.
AEW should slap him with a copyright warning.
Yeah. On Twitter, I guess you can kind of get away with it. But good for him having fun.
It's a smart play on his behalf.
It is promotion. It's getting people talking. We all know what's happening, but just come on. Let's get the conversation going a little bit, and it seems to be what he's doing. So good for Seth Rollins.
I think they're handling it actually very well. I think it's going to be a huge pop on Saturday, and they're doing a good job, I think, directing people towards that desired response. NXT on Tuesday night, it was a good number for NXT. They did 626,000 viewers, 22nd for the night on cable with a 0.14 in the demo. The demo was only up 3%, but it was enough that it was their highest in the 18 to 49 audience since that New Year's Evil special on January 4th. A drop in 18 to 34. They fell 22% this week, but they were up 35 to 49 by 16%. They did 66,000 viewers on Sportsnet 360 here in Canada. So at least a good showing for NXT going into Stand and Deliver on Saturday. And this is a brand that, so much is focused on Saturday and potential departures from NXT. In the case of Ciampa, it seems like a guaranteed one. And it'll be interesting to see if any other names are leaving. And what NXT 2.0 is going to look like a month from now and post Stand and Deliver as well. If there's any major adjustments, do you continue with this Dolph Ziggler experiment, or was this just a short title reign for Breakker to get something at WrestleMania weekend? And Breakker's future with the brand as well. Like this is going to be a brand that I think constantly evolves every 6 to 8 months, where there's going to be a lot of turnover of talent, either going to the main roster or they're not going to be pursuing.
Yeah, and I find that exciting. I think we're still learning a whole lot about their philosophies, about NXT 2.0, and I think this being, what is likely to be their biggest show of the year will tell us a lot about how they see their turnarounds, how they see their cycles for talent. We're constantly getting new, fresh talent being moved into NXT 2.0. When is the first graduating class, so to speak, that'll move out? I think right now what we're seeing with Tommaso Ciampa leaving and potentially some others is the continued maybe exodus of the prior black and gold talents, at least the ones that, we just saw Butch make his debut, for instance. So it seems like they're finally maybe kind of getting rid of their black and gold remnants, and I'm sure the next class is to move up very soon.
Maybe that's a lost opportunity, not doing a graduation episode of NXT.
Graduation, okay. Well, graduation usually comes in the form of somebody taking a loss or a call up.
No, I mean a literal graduation ceremony, like they did when the Saved by the Bell cast graduated Bayside.
Okay.
You can have
Interesting.
Butch and Ciampa with their gowns on.
Yeah, yeah. But then you don't get the surprise, you know.
Well, you could also have the freshman class then come in. NXT the new class.
Yeah, Frosh Week, you know, the whole thing.
Lots of scripted dramatic ideas for the NXT brand. IWTV, Independent Wrestling .tv, made a really interesting announcement. They have partnered up and are going to be adding classic All Japan women's content to the service. The press release reads, long regarded as one of the best promotions of its era, All Japan Women featured many of the most talented professional wrestlers of all time, including Akira Okito, Aja Kong, Manami Toyota, and Bull Nakano. Each month, IWTV will release 5 shows from the promotion's extensive archives. This month's offering includes major events from 89-90, including Wrestle Olympiad 1990, featuring a cage match between Bull Nakano and Aja Kong. I would say, like, that's a significant deal for IWTV. Like, that becomes, you know, I'm not saying it's going to, like, blow up the service, but that's, like, a really coveted library to have access to. And I also think it's kind of smart to not just throw everything out there, to space it out and make it like, you know, bite-sized versions of All Japan Women each month, or however often they are going to be adding shows and such. But I could certainly see people going out of their way to seek this out that have never subscribed to the service.
I certainly think so. Yeah, the fact that I think we're even talking about it suggests that it is one of the more historically well regarded, and I don't know. There's at least a demand, I would say, you know, for people to want to go back and watch this sort of wrestling, as opposed to maybe a lot of pre-existing stuff that's out there. And I'm kind of surprised that maybe we haven't heard of more interest from maybe other companies to secure the rights to at least air it. I mean, they're simply broadcasting, and it's not like they own the stuff.
No.
But still, like, to be able to have access to it, I think is really cool. So we wonder if it'll catch any buzz.
This is the kind of thing I would, if I was AEW wanting to launch a service.
Yeah.
This is the kind of stuff I would want. But again, that goes to the question of AEW building some standalone thing, which I think we're way past that point. And if you are building a service to license out, does this really work for an HBO Max?
If you're only licensing and if you don't own the footage, then probably doesn't really fit. I mean, yeah, but we know that there are big fans of Joshi Wrestling, of course, in that company, you know, Kenny Omega being one of those, and I'm sure among many other people. Is there a room for a potential, you know, AEW package deal with something like this? Maybe not currently, but maybe that's why it's so great to have a company like IWTV being able to bring that up to people who want it.
All right, let's look at the shows that are happening tonight. 4 p.m. Eastern Time, Josh Barnett's Bloodsport 8 will be taking place. This is part of the Collective series and will be streaming on Fight TV. And our lineup, we have Minoru Suzuki, who is doing 4 matches over the course of this weekend, is taking on Chris Dickinson. Josh Barnett versus Jonah. John Moxley versus Biff Busick. Biff Busick is going to be working Moxley on this show, and then Suzuki later tonight. Masha Slamovich against Janai Kai, Yoya versus Ninja Mac, John Hennigan against Simon Gotch, Marina Shafir against Zeta Zhang, Timothy Thatcher versus JR Kratos, Speedball Mike Bailey versus Yuya Uemura, Alex Coughlin versus Slade, and Big Bad Tito versus Royce Isaacs. I know you're very much looking forward to this card today, Way.
I am. It'll be the first show I'll be watching in a couple hours' time. We'll have I'll be able to review it and discuss it a bit later on in the Post Wrestling Cafe. But yeah, I'm always interested in Bloodsport, and this year it looks like their roster is pretty stacked. You know, we have a returning Timothy Thatcher, John Hennigan making a debut. Like him. Even though, like, I don't exactly think about the Bloodsport style when I think of John Hennigan, what I do think of John Hennigan in wrestling is just a great deal of creativity in anything that he does. So I'm actually really curious to see how he fits in here against Simon Gotch, who I think is terrific within Bloodsport. So yeah, Moxley is taking part in multiple GCW matches tonight as well. So he's always pretty exciting to see, you know, what a reinvigorated Biff Busick on the indie scene looks like, you know, so that's a pretty big match. And of course, Suzuki Dickinson, it's a match we've seen before, but it's always it's always exciting. So, yeah, I'm looking forward to the show.
Do we see the dripstick at Bloodsport?
I'm guessing not. No, I'm guessing the dripstick doesn't make an appearance at Bloodsport unless you're talking about blood being dripped.
Could be. AAA is at WrestleCon at 6 Eastern. That's also on Fight TV. Psycho Clown taking on Black Taurus, Laredo Kid, Bandito, and Flamita, which should be phenomenal. This is a very good card. I hope it's not one that gets lost in the shuffle. Pagano, Drago Kid, and Jack Cartwheel against Sam Adonis, Puma King, and Gringo Loco. Mecha Wolf and Bestia CCC versus Aerostar and Drago for the NWA Tag Team Championship. Octagon Jr., Aramis, and Mr. Iguana versus Aris, Abismo Negro, and Fabio Paci, and then Taya, Nino Hamburguesa, and Microman against Rey Escorpion, Mini Abismo Negro, and La Hiedra. So that's a very good show, but I think that's going to be a common theme on a lot of these cards. It's just going to be if people fit this into their time period. So if they're able to catch it. That triple threat, though, for the Cruiserweight Championship, I think that should be spectacular. Bandito is doing this show, and then he's on the Mark Hitchcock show. So we've got MLW's doing their Intimidation Games TV taping. That's only for those live in attendance. That's not streaming. CYN, Control Your Narrative tonight. I hope we get some, I hope they release some outtakes from the Rant Room. Are you familiar with the Rant Room?
Can you explain?
My understanding is that fans get to go into the Rant Room and they can say whatever they would be typing at home in person of some sort.
Okay.
Listen,
and then what do they do with that?
I don't know. I have no idea. I hope we get to see it, though.
Do they actually get to say what they would tweet at these wrestlers, but they get to say them in person? Is that it?
Listen, I fully encourage anyone to send in any reports if they go to this. I don't have any interest in this show, but you got to make choices over WrestleMania weekend. And if anyone goes to check that out, feel free to let us know. And then Joey Janela's Spring Break 6, Part 1. It's happening at 9 Eastern. John Moxley versus AJ Gray for the GCW title. Joey Janela versus Sean Waltman. Nick Gage and Matt Tremont versus the Briscoes against Mance Warner and Matthew Justice for the GCW tag titles. Alex Colon and John Wayne Murdoch for the Ultra Violent Championship. That's probably just going to be nuts. Blake Christian against AR Fox, which looks great. Mickey James against Alley Catch, and then a scramble with Nick Wayne, Jack Cartwheel, Gringo Loco, Jordan Oliver, Ninja Mac, and Alec Price. 7 matches announced for Spring Break tonight, and we will see if they are done by midnight. If not, it's going to be a late night for you and I, Way, but that's what we signed up for.
It is, yeah. And at least, John, there's no clusterfuck on this particular show, so I think you'll be spared for that. But I'm looking forward to it. I mean, I'm to me, Spring Break always has felt like highlights of WrestleMania weekend. And this year, I don't know how like crazy this one will get. Because on paper, it actually kind of looks like, a show where I kind of know what to expect. But of course, there can always be lots of surprises and a lot of craziness, I'm sure.
I just want to go through one more card with the Mark Hitchcock Memorial Super Show. That's happening at 10 Eastern. I am absolutely going to make time to watch this card. I think this card is excellent. Minoru Suzuki against Bip Busick. Tomohiro Ishii versus Timothy Thatcher. The Briscoes against Low Key and Homicide. So they're doing Spring Break and then going to do this, presumably right after. Bandito against Speedball Mike Bailey. And then Mia Yim versus Athena, Michael Oku, Ray Orus, and Laredo Kid against Josh Alexander, Ace Austin, and Black Taurus. Team at Sushi Onita versus Team PCO, members to be revealed on the show. And then a Dirty Dishes match between husband and wife John Hennigan and Taya Valkyrie. I don't know what the hell that will be, but as for the maybe it'll turn out to be great. But this card looks awesome on paper.
It does. It absolutely does. Yeah. Every match looks really strong. Yeah. And now comes the task of having to pick what might be the match of the night.
Yeah. There's also the Planet Death that's late tonight at 1 a.m. Eastern time. But of the matches that we've gone through, I'm putting my money. The match of the night is going to be Speedball Mike Bailey and Bandito. That's my pick.
Okay.
Though that triple threat on the AAA card, I could see that also with Bandito, the common thread there. So maybe that's me leaning on Bandito there. Those are the two I'm kind of putting on my short list. That'll be the big buzzworthy matches coming out of tonight.
I think anytime you have, Bandito and Laredo Kid and Flamita, that's always, I think, going to have some potential. I'm personally really interested in seeing John Moxley versus Biff Busick in Bloodsport. But man, I think you can pick a number of these matches from this March Hitchcock Memorial Show as, matches that can really steal the show. So
Ishii and Thatcher?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, yeah, I think it could be any of these matches.
So you're going with the Dirty Dishes match. Is that your pick?
Yeah, sure.
Okay. Well, there you have it, everyone. That is the lineup for tonight. God knows how we will be by Friday night. Friday is one of the craziest days, I would say, in the history of WrestleMania weekends.
Friday, yeah. There's a lot.
A crazy one. All right. Any super chats you want to go to, Mr. Ting?
No super chats. So instead, I want to direct everybody to store.postwrestling.com. It is the very last day to be able to grab one of these t-shirts in support of 2 charities, of course. So store.postwrestling.com for the Long and Winding Royal Road, our new design of this shirt, and 30% of the profits from this shirt will go to Japanese Red Cross Society, and then we will match that 30% to send to Doctors Without Borders. So store.postwrestling.com, get it before midnight tonight.
All right. Thanks to everybody so far that has supported both of those charities, and we will be back late tonight. PostWrestlingCafe.com. Show will be dropping. It'll be there Friday morning covering Bloodsport that Wai is going to be watching, and then both of us are going to be catching part 1 of Spring Break. And if there's any other news or notes, we will chat about that late tonight. And then back here at 1 Eastern on Friday, we'll do a full preview of the weekend ahead. So thanks to everybody for tuning in. Subscribe to the channel, give us a thumbs up, and we'll chat with you later tonight.